Welcome to the UpLevel Podcast, Julie.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Well, the listeners have heard a little bit about your background, and I let them know how we found each other. Well, actually, you know what? I didn't tell the story I told them about the work that we've done together, but the story of how we found each other, the coaching Tupperware party I had at Jocelyn Pepe's house, and you came. This was at the very, 2 decades ago, beginning of my coaching career. And you lived in the same neighborhood as one of my nearest and dearest. She was hosting this gathering for me. And you had just been appointed the role of developing this internal coach training program for 3,000 leaders across the retail end of the bank.
Mm-hmm.
And you came and we met.
And I found you.
You found me.
Yes. Defining moment.
It was
both of us. It was
such a defining. It was.
Yes.
It was.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk more about that work that we got to do together. But let's start off with this concept that we've been exploring of right relationship.
Mm-hmm.
How are you defining that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting term because it's not something that I would have coined in terms of just finding out the connections that I've had over the years and the people that I consider my tribe. And that's where I went when I think about right relationships. I think about the people who make me whole, whether in work or in life, community, whatever those things are. And I really do blend those things because it's people where I can surround myself with people who will enable me to be my genuine and authentic self, where things are easy. When things get hard, it feels wrong. And so I really do look at it as black and white. Either it works or it doesn't. And I've been in relationships over the years where if it's too hard, you got to let it go. And when you do that deliberately in those relationships, and it's easier to do than not. In some cases, in your life outside of work, you can shed some of those relationships that are too hard, that take energy from you instead of give energy. And there's not that give and take. In work, it's a little bit more difficult, but there's ways to make that happen, I think. And so when I think of right relationships, I think of a mutual respect. I think of just this generation of love that is not in competition with each other, but it's about being there for each other and helping bring out the best in each other. That to me that's right.
And I just got shivers because whenever I'm asked who was the best people manager, people leader I ever worked with, I think of you. I talk about you because your ability to bring out the best in other people. I've told you this every time we reconnect, I tell you this, but I want the listeners to think about a people manager that they've had over their career who challenged them. And at times, right, Julie, I was like, gosh, you're driving me crazy because you're holding me bigger than I'm holding myself. And you knew what I was capable of, but I was on an edge. We all were, that whole team, because we were doing some really cool, cutting edge things at the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you held us all bigger than we held ourselves. And you have this ability to hold the vision and hold the people. I never felt like a cog in the wheel or a robot or just a result at the end of, So when I think about a people manager who knows how to hold right relationship, you are the archetype.
That's very kind. I think that time that you're referring to is a time where everybody was open to that, because I think you can help hold people to a higher standard when you know they want to get there, right? You can't do it with everybody. So not everybody is coachable, right? We use that term a lot. In fact, when I think about people I hire or people who I look for to work with are people who are coachable. They're open to learning and growing and shifting, right? I think that's really important. And we were in an environment where everybody was open to it because that was our job. Our job was actually to get the best and most out of others. And so this whole team, yourself included, were people who said, I need to hold myself to that higher standard. And so what does that look like? And what a wonderful gift that is for a leader when you've got a whole community of people saying, show me the way, right? It just is so inspiring and invigorating that you just want to keep on pushing and going and push people to their limits. It's a really, really cool place to be in.
Is that when you look back on the past 30 years of your career, was that a peak experience for you that time?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. I think it defined a lot of the way I lead today. I think it was a great time in my career where I had enough fails and misses in my previous time as a leader, like a lot of learnings. And you learn in those fail moments, right? In those relationships that don't work, you can't figure out, you don't know why they don't work. I'd gone through enough of that in my career that when I got to that place in that time, I felt empowered to go further and to test some of those limits. And so it definitely leapfrogged me forward. Had I not had that role, I don't think I would have grown to the degree that I did in that time. So it's definitely a defining moment for so many reasons. And I do go back to those times. I do go back to those moments and think about just the energy that was created in that team. And I draw on that when I think about problem solving and challenges that I have in my current world that I need to tackle and tackle differently. I try to think about reshaping my thinking. And it takes me back because that was a couple of years of very deep, deep diving into human relationships.
It was. And so that's actually a great segue to I'm curious from your perspective how coaching, the modality of coaching, the skills, the concepts, how they can support leaders and organizations find that right relationship.
Yeah, I mean, coaching is such a broad term, and I think we use it very loosely in the corporate world. There's like small C coaching and big C coaching, right? And I mean, Christy, you and I used to battle this out in terms of like life coaching and just going deep and woo woo and kumbaya, which I am not that person.
Yep, you're definitely not. No.
You would try to bring me there, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the like maybe small C coaching, which is how do I get the best out of somebody? I may have all the answers, but it's not going to help somebody grow and self-fulfill and self-actualize if I give them the answers. And so for me, when I think about coaching, it's showing up with purpose and with curiosity. And the word curious is probably the one word that I tie into coaching that I try to get back to continually. And it's very, very hard, especially in moments of stress where you just want to go and tell and teach and advise. And with, years and under my belt, I'm like, I've been there, done that. So I'm going to try to just go this way. And what that time helped me develop was that curiosity muscle that my way may not be the right way. And there are other ways to do it. And we're all going to end up in the same place and probably better. And the more different somebody is, the more curious I become. Yeah. And so I find that diversity, that's my biggest learning, I think, Christy, in my years of leadership. And this is, pre that coaching moment, that coaching time in our life. I would fight people who were different than me. And by different, I mean who approach things differently. So I tend to think more creatively and less linearly. And so anytime I would work with somebody who was very linear, I would struggle and fight and defend. I'd be in that challenger state constantly. And it wasn't until a leader basically sat me down and said, listen, this person is going to help you grow. You need to work with this person. You've got to figure this out. And the difference that this person brings is what is going to bring you stronger. And I don't know if it was just that moment in time or the project we were working on. I don't know what it was about that moment, but it set me straight and it set me thinking about difference is power. And all of a sudden I showed up with a curiosity that I never had before with people who were different. Now, this is like 20 plus years ago. But I remember that day and I use that story often about diversity of thought. And diversity is not just about different color, religion, history. That's not, to me, diversity is just people who approach things differently, who have a different shared experience or an unshared experience that they bring to the table to help you problem solve in a different way. And that's what coaching brings me, is if I can get into a state of curiosity to try to understand why is that person approaching this problem in this way? Why aren't they agreeing with me? It may not be a direct report, right? It could be a colleague and they're doing something and we're in this like moment of tension. And the more there's tension, the more I sit back and reflect and think, okay, there's something here I am missing. And so let me be curious, let me ask questions to really get at the root of what we're trying to solve, not to try to defend, but to listen to understand. And that's what coaching gave me. And I tell you, it's hard. I gotta be I'm surrounded by coaches. My friends, all my friends are coaches, and I'm surrounded by this. And it's still hard. I still have to take a step back, usually in those moments of stress and tension, to just do a bit of a reset and go, okay, what am I missing? What's the learning that I need to get out of this that is going to help us get to the place we need to go?
Brilliant. The piece around the tension. This is coming up a lot as we're exploring this concept of right relationship, because so much of nature, humanity is about attention. There's just this, and there's a healthy tension, and there can be an unhealthy tension. So what I hear you saying is you have found ways to navigate or to perceive the tension as a positive. Like, here's an opportunity for me to activate curiosity, take some deep breaths, take a step back, ask some curious questions. So for folks that are, well, let's level set. We've been in 5 years of tension upon tension, upon tension, right? The world is not what it was 5 years ago. And a lot of people are feeling that overwhelm in their nervous system.
Yeah.
How have you managed, because you did this well before the world has done what it's been doing. How have you been navigating the past 5 years to that internal tension, to find that inner kind of balance and center so that you can keep leading so powerfully through these times?
I inherently love a good challenge.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
I'm just,
You're up for it. Yeah.
I'm just built that way. I love learning. I love a challenge. I love problem solving. These are all just inherent in my being. And I think in times of tension, it's upon us to lean in, not to be apathetic and back away from the issue, right? And so surrounding yourself with people who challenge you is, I think, the right way forward. So don't look for people who are going to confirm your thinking, right? We talk about confirmation bias right now in the news, right? So people who are, if you're lean left, you listen to these, you watch these, listen to these podcasts, watch this news station. If you lean right, you look at this. And so we have this chasm of thinking that just keeps getting reinforced. And when you actually lean into another source of information with an edge of curiosity to try to learn, I think it helps us just bring about that challenge and thinking and growth, right? And so that's the lean in that I think it's upon us to do more of. You know, it's interesting. I started rewatching The West Wing.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So this is like 25 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to watch it now, given our economic times and some of the big tensions that we're feeling geopolitically.
Yeah.
And one of the characters that have just been brought in, so for those of you who've never seen The West Wing, it's all about U.S. political drama. As the Democrats are in power, they hire a female Republican lawyer to join their team with the purpose of challenging all of their approaches, their positions, and to learn about the other side. And I had this aha moment when I saw this happening, and I didn't catch it the last time I watched it 25 years ago, right? Like, I wasn't in that space. And now it's all about, how do you find those people and bring them into the fold who are deliberately not thinking like you, so you can grow and learn and approach the world in a different way. I just found it such a brilliant approach to politics, and you can apply it in everyday life, right? Like, bring those people closer. And I think about relationships that I have that are near and dear to me, that I've had for many years, and we are very different. We even have different values. You know, I think about right relationships, that's shared value systems, not necessarily. Like, bring on somebody who's bringing a different perspective. As long as there's mutual respect along the way, I think we can learn so much from each other and just help grow as a people. I think it's so important and valuable. And that's the biggest risk right now in our society, is this divide that is just being further and further ingrained by virtue of political affiliation. And that's a danger, I think.
I totally agree. It's a danger. And I think because people have lost that curiosity muscle and because nervous systems are afraid. So there does need to be a component of, let's get curious with you. How do you care for yourself?
Mhm.
How do you care for yourself so that you can keep coming at it with this very healthy perspective of tension is good, difference makes things better. Bring on the different approaches. How do you care for yourself so that you can hold that?
Yeah, that is hard. I mean, listen, it's easy to talk about it, right? It is
Yeah.
hard to execute and to be
Yes.
reminded. And I mean, I get those tension burnouts like everybody else does, right? Where I just want to throw my hands up in the air and go live in the jungle, go live in the mountains and just get off the grid, right? I have those moments, I think, like everybody else, because it does tap into your core. Um, so I think, I mean, it's really down to, I think, a lot of basics, which is how do you reset your nervous system? And you talk about it, right? And so for me, it's the physical challenge. I need to get physical, and that helps me reset. And it's all about, I think, your getting your physical self regrounded helps then the emotional and mental, intellectual self move forward. And so if I don't get that workout, if I don't get the endorphins going, get all those chemicals, hormones firing on all cylinders, it will get a hold of me, and that's when I get to the burnout stage. And so the intensity of physical exercise becomes really important for me. And I'm naturally, I think, also a tribal person. I need to be surrounded by great people, and so I'd say it's the physical element, and then being surrounded by the people who fulfill me. That also fills my bucket. You know, the expression of when your bucket is empty, how do you refill it? And filling it with the people who will bring me energy versus take that energy away from me is so powerful. And those are my girlfriends. My girlfriends just bring it back. So if I don't have that in balance, I think about my work fulfillment, my physical fulfillment, my family is very important to me, and my friends. Those are the four legs of the stool.
Yeah.
And when one leg falls off, I get out of balance. And so I typically tap into one of those four things. And right now, it's the work element that's just pulling on me that I find I need to lean in more to those other three legs. It keeps me in balance and check and able to pause, get out of that tension and stress
Mhm.
that will put me in a position of not listening and not being curious and fighting is that fight or flight that starts to happen in the boardroom. That I need to just reset and rebalance. And if I get those other legs in balance, then I'm good. Then
Yeah.
I can get back into that active listening and figure out what we're actually trying to solve.
I remember when you created that four-legged stool, I think you were preparing for a speak for a women's leadership.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good memory. A long time ago. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think about that all the time.
Yeah, I do too. And again, you're a model of a female leader who has really been able to hold the four-legged stool. And I know it's not perfect. I hear what you're saying. And there's
Yeah.
times where you're like, this is hard.
Yeah.
But what can you share with us for our leaders who are mothers, who are
Mhm.
executives, who have strong friendships? Like I know you go scrapbooking every year with your group, like you're like really good at sticking to the rituals and then taking care of yourself. Like what can you tell us about the journey of finding right relationship with the four-legged stool?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because my four-legged stool will be different than someone else's, right?
Yeah.
And I just learned that when I'm under stress, if I think to those four legs, I can always uncover the one that's out of whack. And so it's just a really good anchor for me to think about what's wrong in my life, like what's not working for me right now. Um, and the key for me is also combining some of those, like they're not mutually exclusive of each other. So I think about the physical leg and I think about the family leg as an example. This is the best example I could give because I put it into practice at a time where I was most stressed when I had two little ones at home. My husband and I were ships in the night. Like it was a tag, right? I would leave in the morning before the kids got up. I pick up the kids at the end of the day. That's how we kind of swapped out. Kids had activities and I was physically burning out. So I decided to do what most crazy people decide to do. I decided to train for a marathon. You'll remember that.
Doing that with you. Yes.
That's right. And so it's like at a time of most stress, I decided I needed to put a goal in place that would help me reframe some of these legs. Right. And so when I made that goal, I thought, okay, I don't have enough time in the day. So I've got to figure out how to combine these things. And so when I did some training, I would include my kids in that process, right? And so then family and physical came together. So my kids would bike with me when I ran, for instance, as an example. I brought my friends into the mix, right? Where I told them, hey, I'm doing this. This is really important to me. Friends would run with me. And Christy, you joined me. And training and said, not only will I support you, I'm going to do it with you.
Damn near killed me, but I did it. Yeah.
Damn near killed you. I know. But then you create, and then the people you run with, right? That's that energy and that fuel that I needed out of the friendships that balanced the stool for me. And same thing with work, right? It allowed me to bring my authentic self to work. And, a lot of people park their self at the door. They go to work, they become somebody, they come back, and that's where the blur starts to happen. Intentions float up. I've never done that. I don't, and I can't tell you why. But I think from very early on, I somehow felt I had permission from whoever, wherever, that I could just do that. And so bringing that into, okay, I'm training. And so, my work environment supported me and said, hey, Julie, you got to go. You have a training session, or, don't work so hard here because you got to do this. And so when you start bringing them all together, that was probably another defining moment in my life where I could legitimately say I had it all. And I felt like it had good balance. And I felt very fulfilled and accomplished. And the act of doing that, fulfilling that goal was incredibly empowering. And I tap into that a lot too. When I feel like I can't do something, I go back to those days where I did not feel I could run a marathon. It took me a long time to get my head in that space. So when you don't feel like you can, you make it happen, you accomplish. There's power in that. And that just gives you, I think that it shows up in everything you do after that.
And I think the other thread that I'm going to pull out that I'm hearing in the other conversations, part of right relationship is this integration. So it's not doing things in isolation or in silos. So in your four-legged stool of like caring for yourself, you're integrating family with health, work with friends, and like just that infinity loop that I've been talking a lot about. It's so that it's all reciprocal. It's working together. So it's another way for us to think about like, how are you integrating the different components of your life to find right relationship within yourself and then with the ecosystems that you're a part of.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, that integration is so important. And I think those who are lost and can't find their way, there's usually a tension in their own lack of integration, right? Like there's something off.
Yeah.
And we have to be reminded of that. And we have to remind each other, right? I think it's on us to really tap into that with our people, the people, our tribe, whatever that tribe is, right? I think especially as women, we're very tribal. We need each other. I think we need each other more than men need each other. I mean, I see it in my husband and his relationship with friends. He needs his friend group. They need each other differently than women do. And so find your tribe, right? Find those people and remind each other of what that looks like. I find it quite fascinating that recently I've been seeing people create advisory boards for their life. And this is a new thing.
That's cool.
It's really cool because I've seen it with small businesses, right? Small businesses will create advisory boards. And so it's people who will challenge them and push them and help them get to where they need to go. And now I'm starting to see this bubble up. And it's in different groups. Like I'm seeing kind of pop up all over. And I think it's a new way of getting on track and feeling supported, right? Continually supported, accountable, non-judged, right? I think people want to surround themselves with people who are going to lift them up and make them better and create an accountability forum with those people. And I've done it without realizing that I was doing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You do it organically. You do that organically for the people around you.
Well, and I've had it done with me. I mean, you talk about the scrapbooking weekends. It's
Yeah.
funny that you remember that. I stopped doing it, but I still have the relationships.
Yeah.
And it was a way of some women coming together twice a year to do something creative and to just be with each other and support each other. Looking at pictures, looking at the past 6 months, and just sharing the wins, the losses, and everything in between. And that becomes very cathartic. And so this is something women do. I would say successful women do it well. I
Yeah.
really do. I believe it's an important ingredient
Yeah.
in those right relationships is those people you trust implicitly who aren't in competition with you. I think women are very competitive
Yeah.
and judgmental. And if you can find those people who are legitimately there for each other,
Yeah.
um, and and you find that whether it's one, two, five people, it doesn't matter how many people, right? But feeling that you got the right mix, I think it's a really amazing thing.
It's we're talking a lot about the community factor too with right relationship. And so that's where I
Yeah.
feel, that's what you're speaking to. And it
Yes.
has gotten lost in our modern society and culture and in environments where people are working, raising families. We've lost that sense of community because, like you said, you get home, you're passing the baton to your partner, taking the kids somewhere, one's making dinner. And it's like, we need to be intentional about,
Yeah.
okay, I'm having a weekend away with this group of people because it is part of my caring for myself, my well being. Um, can you talk a little bit more about being a female leader in what has historically been a more male dominated fields? What's that been like? What's that journey been like?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, listen, I've been 29 years with the same company. The company's been great to me. I've had great teams and I've had probably 15 jobs in those 29 years. I mean, it's a large company. And so I've been very fortunate. I've been very often the only woman at the table. And and I can't say, I think back to those early days in my career, I never felt different. I actually never felt that I was excluded, um, or not welcome, that my views weren't welcome. I can't say I can pinpoint a time. Whether that happened or not, I don't, I can't tell you. But I never felt like, woe is me, I'm a woman. I don't get the same as the man. Don't get
Yeah.
the same attention. Now, did I learn how to play golf so I can go golf with the guys? Did I learn how to drink scotch and beer
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
part of the crew? I mean, those moments for sure. Like
Yeah.
the bro culture is alive and well.
Yeah.
And I have adapted. I think probably um, not as deliberately as you would think. I think it just sort of happened naturally. I just happened. I mean, I like being active. I like sports. I like being communal, right? So you
Mm,
find ways to fit in. I think you do that. Men and women have to do that.
mm,
Um, I think that's just part of life. And so that's been an interesting part. As I look back, I'm sure there are things that I did because I was in a male dominated environment,
mm,
right? But I never felt lesser than. I think
mm.
that's important. I never felt lesser than. I do feel that in recent months, I mean, I would say years, but in recent months, it's been really visible to me that I feel like I have a greater responsibility because of everything happening in the world, and how things have shifted and changed. And so I do feel a responsibility to be the voice around the table that will call people out to say it's not okay to say those things or do those things or talk about that person in this way. Um, that becomes important. And so I do feel like I'm becoming maybe the feminist around the table where I don't feel like I had to do that before.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I don't know if it's because I feel that I'm in that power now that I can.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I've earned the right to do it, perhaps. I feel less resistance to it,
Mm,
or I'm seeing more of it and more sensitive to it. I don't know why. That I've got to dig into and better understand that.
mm,
But there are responsibilities, and I also feel a real responsibility to mentor more women.
mm.
Um, I'm at a stage in my career where I am I have accepted to not be on the trajectory that I have been. I've sort of become comfortable in the space that I'm in and happy and fulfilled in the space that I'm in. And I want to give those opportunities to women where those opportunities may not have been as easy for me. Like I probably worked harder than I realized. And this is on reflection, right? When I look back. And so I feel like I've gathered some wisdom over the years that I want to share. Things that I learned later in my career that I wish I'd known sooner. And so I'm looking around the organization and I'm looking at women around and seeing them go down a path that I went down, thinking, I can help them. I can help them navigate in a way that might be different than their intuition. And I
Yeah.
want to help them there because of my learned wisdom. And so that's become more of an intention as a woman in a male dominated industry that I feel a very deep rooted responsibility for.
Yeah.
It helps that I have two young adult girls as well, that I think of them as well. And I'm trying to guide and get them to the place where I think they want to go. And so I'm becoming a little more purposeful as a woman and leader.
Lucky people that you're tagging on the shoulder for the mentorship. I know, because you've always done it organically. And I know you've always like sat on different boards and supported women in leadership. And, I just see you doing more and more of that. Like you said, you're stepping into, like, in our world, we call like elderhood, not because of your age, but because of your wisdom.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
so it's
exactly.
like you're owning that, and then that's such a gift to give back to folks that are at a different stage of their career and their journey. How has your femininity been an asset?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think women are definitely more sensitive to situations and I think emotionally connected, right? It's an asset in that I will always lean on the side of the employee when I think about the employee boss relationship and some of the decisions that we make from an employee experience. I definitely lean more towards the employee when I'm in a room full of men. That's part of my responsibility because I see that sort of side of the humanity. I don't know if it's a femininity or if it's just the way I'm built. You know what I mean? Like that's the part that I'm not sure. Women typically, are a little bit more sensitive to those things. And, we think about people before profit. It's just how we're built, I think. But I don't know if feminine, the feminine mystique, right, has shown up around the table. I'm sure it has. I don't know how. I'm sure it has.
I
don't know
see
if
a
I
way.
actually qualify.
I see a way that you've done it, and like you said, it's like just it's not an awareness because it's just innate, but I've seen that you've always created space for the thinking or the allowing for the idea to come through. Like, my experience of you as a leader is, yes, there's back-to-backs, but there's always time carved up for intentional, like, allowing for some thinking, strategizing, visioning, which I feel is like the feminine principle. There's like, we can't, if we have every second booked, then we can't get the idea. It can't come in, or it's not going to necessarily be as organic, inclusive, long lasting. But so is that any of that resonating, like that you've intentionally created space to let ideas come through, which is like a feminine principle?
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting because it's taking me back to a frustration that I'm having right now in my work life where we are not carving out enough think time. And so it's interesting. I'm not sure I would have attributed that to feminine principles. It's interesting to hear you articulate that because it is something that I'm trying to find ways to create more of that space, right? For that to happen and to give purpose to it. And when I don't have it, that's where I start to feel that stress and tension. So I think it's a self-preservation thing too, right? So that I'm comfortable going to the place where I need us to go, that I've had that time. And I've heard from others because that's important to me too. I mean, it's interesting because I'm now the quote unquote senior around my table of colleagues. I'm the one with the most experience in the role that I'm in. And that somehow gives me a responsibility that if it's quiet and people are moving the work forward, that I feel like I got to be the one to step in and to create that space and create the dialogue that may not happen otherwise, because I think people think, oh, if it's not coming up, it must not be an issue, right? Because everybody's trying to find their way still. And so that's an interesting, it is a responsibility. When I think about as a woman leader, there's a lot of different elements of responsibility. Some of it is as a woman, some of it is as an elder. I think that's like, I actually like that language because it really is like we have this wisdom, which is why when I talk about mentoring, I find it fascinating because people will reach out to me and I never say no. If somebody reaches out, wants some guidance, I never say no. And I've had a few people reach out to me recently and they all ask me the same questions. And I'm thinking, and I give them the answers that that I feel like this is how things work. This is what I think you need to do. And they're so surprised by my answer. I'm thinking, wow, they don't know. And I realized I didn't know either at that stage of my career. I didn't know that's how things worked. It's like the secret handshake, right? Like what goes on behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Here's how it works in corporate life. Here are the tools you need and the skills you need to navigate. And that's when I realized, okay, I got to be more proactive, right? I've got that responsibility, that elder responsibility to help shape that future generation. And it's quite fulfilling and fun. It's something I really enjoy. So to give life to that, I think is very fulfilling.
And this is right relationship, right? When we are able to give back and bring the wisdom, it's that reciprocal piece again. It's, one of the things we're really uncovering is just like nature does that. Like all of the plants and the trees are communicating and they're serving each other. They're serving the ecosystem of the animals. It's the same with us in workspaces. It's like now you're in a place where you can intentionally give back so somebody can maybe avoid a pitfall that you were in. And so this is the continuum, the circle of life. Julie, looking back on the past 30 years and all of the goodness and like all the ups and downs, what is one piece of guidance you'd give? And like in the context of right relationship, what's some guidance you'd provide us?
I'd say surround yourself with good people would be number one. Find your tribe. And then the second one is almost the opposite. So it's almost like a yin and yang, right? Is find your tribe that you can lean into, but also find the people who aren't like you and work with those people. And it takes me back to the team that we worked together in, right? Where I had an opportunity to build the team from scratch. And I've never had that chance again. I don't know if I'll ever have that chance again to build a team from nothing and to think about what do I need to bring into the team to create team? Like what are all the sum of the parts that I want to come together? And I recruited people I never would have recruited before that team. And I was very deliberate in finding everybody brought something different to the team. And when I brought you all together, I was very deliberate about that. I said, hey, you all bring something different, figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. So that you can draw on each other and find out, okay, what does that person bring that I can lean into? So it takes away the competitive and it brings in the cohesion. And so if I think about the wisdom I've learned, and I learned that over the years up until that point, but I think about that now when I think about hiring around my table, we think about fit. You want to have fit around the table that everybody kind of connects, but you also want some elements of tension. You want people to come together that are going to destabilize a little bit, right? Shake things up a little bit so that it brings new perspectives and you can get to a better place. And diversity of thought, bar none, is my greatest learning in my 30 years. I've learned from people unexpectedly over the years. And it's not people, who are my friends or people who I went out for coffee with or for drinks with after work, right? Or hung out by the water cooler. It's been somebody unlike me, somebody who I would not have attracted into my tribe, but who I learned so much from. And so that's kept me open to those possibilities and that curiosity that we talked about, at the top of the call, to say like, look for those opportunities because that's how we grow and learn and become better leaders and better people. Ultimately, you have just a degree of empathy to the world around you in ways that you won't get if you just keep attracting sameness. So there's a place for both. You need sameness for your tribe to wrap your arms around you, to feel that comfort and that love and support. And then you need the diversity to help push you and destabilize you and grow. And I think if you can get the combination of those two things, the world is your oyster. I think good things happen and you'll feel just fulfilled in all the ways.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for who you be in the world, the work that you do, the commitment you have always had to the four-legged stool so that you can serve in the way you do, serve others, lead others the way that you do. And if you're going to project 20 years into the future, where will Julie be then? What will she be up to 20 years into the future? What are you seeing for yourself?
Oh, I see. And I think 20 years ahead, I can't help but think about my girls and think about where they're going to be. And if they can just be that much more and further ahead and further fulfilled than I am, I get it in double. I've watched two amazing women into the world, and I'm just thrilled to watch them grow and give it all they got, and just be able to replicate, all those things that are good and true, and hopefully keep doing what I'm doing. I mean, just keep leaning into that give back, right? Just keep giving back. I still have a lot of fire in my belly.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't imagine. I mean, I tell people this all the time, you have more career ahead of you than you have behind you. The whole Freedom 55 thing, right, is a thing of the past. Like, we are living longer, loving longer, challenging ourselves longer, physically, intellectually, emotionally. I think there's a lot of runway. And so just thinking about continuing to tap into those learning moments to continue to grow and become better and better, I think is where we'll be. We'll see. We'll see. It'll be fun to watch.
Maybe we'll be doing a scrapbooking thing out in BC at the beautiful house,
You're on. You're on.
Thank you, Julie. Appreciate you.
Thank you. This has been great.